HD. Blender, welcome to the show, buddy.
Hey, how's it going? I'm trying to get this tweet out. Apparently, TweetDeck, you schedule it and then it doesn't go. It doesn't want me to tell people about the bankroll challenge, especially since it's almost like a fraudulent thing now.
It is.
Now you're making rules up because hey, we all know in DFS, your bankroll is the money that you play with. So like whether or not you want it in the specific contest that you have for the spreadsheet, it's like technically you made $10,000 last week, and the reason you made this little caveat thing is because it's not funny anymore. It's week 4 and you're already up 10,000. You're playing $100 thing. It's over. The challenge is over. So I think from a comedic perspective, I get what you're doing, but from a DFS perspective, I'm like, no, you got $10,000.
Here's the thing. You're actually not right with my line of thought here, because I can't win. Because if I say that I won $10,000, everyone goes, well, that's not the lineup that you put in the listener league, the one you put in the big spy that you told us. I even had Yes Man, you know him from the RotoGrinders comments. He said, I appreciate that you didn't try to pull a fast one over us and tell us that you won 10,000 in the bankroll challenge. So I can't win, Blender. You want me to count it?
It's the bankroll. It's your bankroll. Is that $10,000 not in your DraftKings account?
It is. I look at it every day.
Bankroll, right?
Yeah.
Are you withdrawing that and then buying something? Is it getting out of your bankroll?
No, because I do these screen shares on all of these shows, and I need that balance to be seen in there every time I do one of these shows. So I will never withdraw.
That's your bankroll. So then it should be on the spreadsheet. That's what I'm saying.
All right. Yeah, we will. We're gonna have to disagree with that. The people still want to have it, be by the letter of the law. Here's the thing, Blender. Last year, I couldn't bring you on the show because I was eating shit week after week. I knew you would come on and bash me for my idiotic plays. You would condescend to me. So I waited. I perfectly timed it until I won $10,000. Now you can come on and say whatever you want, Blender.
Right. Last year, I was watching last year. You made these lineups. I'm like, it's a 4,000 entry contest. What are you galaxy braiding this crap? Like, okay, okay, we can't play the chalky guy, so we're going to play the leverage off of him. And then, then we can't play this guy. And then next thing you know, you have like 4th wide receivers in your lineup and like a running back that's going to get 8 touches. And I'm like, you wonder why you're losing? Like that's a Millie lineup. That's not a single entry lineup.
Yeah, there was a lot of galaxy braining going on last year. This past week, I just played the obvious double stack, the Russ to Metcalf and Lockett, and everything worked itself out. But what we're going to do here today, if you guys are tuning in for the first time to one of these shows, I like to just approach the slate from a more game theory perspective, which Blender is obviously a pro at. If you guys don't listen to the advanced analytics show on the RotoGrinders network, that's one of my favorite shows of the week, talking correlations and stuff. So we will talk about this slate from a different perspective. We are not going to go game by game, pick by pick here, Blender. Right.
Well, I don't do the picks. Play whoever you want. What the picks?
Is this the ultimate play whoever you want? Eight games with 50-point over-unders or higher?
I think it's a slate where you don't have to necessarily worry as much about like last week with the Cardinals. Like all those 3 guys were 30% owned. The Seattle Dallas stack like that. It was very clear out of 13 games like where most of the field is going this week. I mean there are spots that people are going towards, but I think they're going to be more chalky one-offs than chalky stacks, and I think that's where you'd be looking for the leverage instead of like as long as you fade one of like the chalkier wide receiver or running backs, it's like play the stack that you want to play.
Yeah, we have a few kind of interesting injury situations to monitor. DeAndre Hopkins hasn't been practicing this week. It sounds like he might tough it out, but that would definitely take the shine off of that game perhaps a little bit, or maybe you're still interested in it.
Oh, in the Cardinals game? Yeah, why not? Lower ownership. So there you go. Just like what's going on with Duke Johnson. He's in full practice with the Texans, and I'm still seeing David Johnson ownership being high. So, like, if David Johnson doesn't have 95% of that backfield, like maybe he's not worth 18, 20% ownership. So, like going for the passing game there. So I'm like, Kareem Hunt was in practice today, so that kind of takes Nick Chubb out of play. So yeah. I like looking at these spots. Like I like looking at someone like Will Fuller.
Yeah.
Who had a hamstring problem, but now he's in full practice. It's always a mess because he could play and then he could come out and whatever. So at high ownership, I may not want to play him, but in this slate, he's probably not going to get any. Maybe more so on FanDuel than DraftKings. So like I play DFS more from a game theory perspective than a pure football perspective. So I look at the flow chart, and then that all of a sudden, whoever's the tight end against the Cardinals becomes overowned for no apparent reason. So I'm just looking for those spots where people just the perception makes their ownership go up, and then or the perception makes the ownership go down. I can't play Hopkins at 8,500; he's injured, and I'm like, well, I'll play him at 7% ownership then. Good, thank you.
Right. All right, let's back up a little bit here. I know that you're in these single entry 3 max streets. Are you a hand builder? Or are you an opto bro?
For the single entry and 3 max lineups, I am a hand builder.
Okay, that's good. That's good here. Yeah, we're on back-to-back weeks. Chop was here. He is as a hand builder, although Drew Dinkmeyer week 1, he confessed to being an opto bro. He just let it rips, throws it in the contest. Do you use, so like what I've been doing is I like running the optimals, seeing what card he has in the blitz, and then just as an idea generation standpoint, are you truly just going hand build, or are you using projections as a starting point for you?
Well, I use the projections to make my player pool. So like when I don't just hand build the single entry lineups, I hand build, but I'm still going to make 100 plus lineups for large field GPPs. I use lineup HQ for that.
Yeah.
And I'll look at not just one set of projections. I want to look at projections around the industry. I don't necessarily aggregate them, but I'll go to different content sites.
Yeah.
And see, because the blitz by Cardi is not going to be a consensus take, and the ownership projections may be slightly different here versus there. So I'll go around and see. It's like, oh, okay, this guy's projecting well at these places, not as much so here, just to get more of a sense of what the field is doing. Because I'm basing my play on what the field is doing more so than who has a good matchup and point per dollar value. Like once I make my player pool based on what the field is going to do, I can throw the projections out the window. I mean, now I'm just building based on correlation and leverage. So the median projection doesn't really matter anymore.
And would you say in general, does your single entry 3 max set have a higher cumulative average ownership than your 150 max set?
Definitely. But I mean, I'm more likely to be contrarian in single entry than I am in large field, but you're contrarian in different ways. So I remember last year, you called me a sick bastard for playing Matthews a Lion stack at like no ownership with Marvin Jones 2% 4 touchdown game. But the rest of my lineup was like play the best plays because I'll get contrarian in either fading a one-off, playing a 5% owned. Instead of playing Kamara this week, you play someone else at that range that's going to be very low owned. And then the rest of the lineup is kind of like, what are the best point per dollar plays, and just try to jam as much in as you can.
I remember another one of your lineups from last year where you finished pretty high in the SPY, and you had that vomit stack when Matt Schaub filled in for the Falcons. And then, that was when I first started thinking about those secondary correlations a lot, the running back wide receiver from another game. Are you still, would you say the majority of your lineups have that kind of secondary correlation along with the double stacks and bringbacks?
I try. It depends. It really depends on the slate. So I'll first go into the slate and look at 2 things. One, leverage points, like who's the chalk and what's the negative correlation off the chalk. And then the second thing would be blocks. So that's why I'm big into vomit stacks, because from a point per dollar value, if a team is cheap and I don't care about the quarterback, and I could get 2 wide receivers and a quarterback and then a run back for like reasonable price, and then I could jam in a Kamara, Zeke, and high price wide receiver in there. If the stack works, the lineup wins because I have the best plays in the rest of my lineup. So I'm looking for that, not necessarily like the correlate. Like if in a lineup like that I don't have a secondary correlation, then so be it. And in some lineups it won't be a double stack. It'll be a 2-1. Sometimes a 2-2. Sometimes I look for blocks. I think there's one, maybe 2 blocks this week where you could do 3-2. 2-2, 3-2. And if that game goes off, you pretty much get like 85% of production. And then, like you proved last week, you don't have to get everything right. You're playing a 4,000 person contest. Like when I came in third with the line stack, Golladay had 3 points. Marvin Jones had 4 touchdowns, but the block as a whole won. I didn't have to care if Golladay got 2 touchdowns and Marvin Jones got 2 touchdowns. I win also. So It doesn't matter where the points go to on the team. As long as it works out, it works out.
I see some questions in the chat. I'll hop over to these in a second. I've definitely come around and have seen the light on the play whoever you want ideology. That said, do you find yourself when you're hand building starting with a stack or starting with maybe a secondary correlation or one-off play that you like?
No, you start with the stack. I mean, it's always going to start with like what 2 pass catchers, what run back, because it's going to be the bulk of your lineup. It's going to be half of your lineup, a third of your lineup. So starting from there makes the most sense. The quarterback, I don't care about. It's more of the receiving prices and which side of the game do I want to take the quarterback from? Because typically I'm going to play a run back, but the run back could be on either side. So a lot of times I look and go, if the popular side of the stack is going to be, Kyler Murray, I'm like, well, who's the quarterback on the other side? Because if I'm going to play we have the Saints Lions game, and if you're going to play Kamara correlatively, I think it makes more sense to play a Stafford stack than play Breeze, Kamara, someone else. So I'm looking at, once I get that in, and then I see what I could fill in from there. Can I fit in a secondary correlation with 2 good players that could hit a ceiling together? And this year, I talked about it on the ASA show, I'm much more likely. I think people have not gotten to grips on the state of the NFL with how running backs work, that wide receiver ceilings are more consistent than running back ceilings due to touchdown variance. When they're in the red zone, who's going to be on the field? They have running back by committee. Even teams that don't have running back by committee, you see Alexander Madison getting goal line carries for the Vikings. You'll see Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Who knows? They'll both get. So by that, it seems like if I could nail cheap running backs for 20 points, it's much easier to get 20 points from them than try to get a 4K wide receiver to get 20 points. So I've been working more this year, especially in single entry, that I'm playing 4 wide receiver lineups, that I'm like, maybe I'm paying up in one running back spot, paying down another running back spot. And then can I get 4 6K wide receivers in here that could get 30 plus points? And obviously I'm playing a stack, it's correlative in some way. But I think that's more of the edge these days, because we were used 3-5 years ago of like Le'Veon Bell, David Johnson, Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley. Like, we have so many bell cows that you just play all the dudes, jam them in, and then figure out the rest of your line.
Yeah, that's very true. And we've seen it, week after week. It's like the Ridley in week 1, the Terry McLaurin week 2, the Allen Robinson week 3, these mid-6 guys that still have access to being the highest scorer on the slate, which you're just not going to find normally down in the dumpster $4,000 range. Here's a question for you. Everyone understands the concept of the double stack and even the bring back. I'm going to use a specific example because I want to hear how you think about bring back. So I was looking at a Jared Goff, Kupp, and Robert Woods stack for this week. And I think there's 3 options on the Giants. If I want to go Slayton, Ingram, or Tate, they're all priced relatively similarly. Derek Carty has them all projected for a similar amount of points. The ownership doesn't look out of hand. How do you think about where you're going with a bring back in that kind of situation?
I want the bring back is either a high volume receiver or a one play, one trick pony type of receiver. So I don't like on the Giants. There's no one like Slayton, I guess, is like the one trick pony. But truthfully, I don't like that game at all.
Really? Okay.
So I mean, I just think the Rams run the ball too much. They're one of the most run heavy teams. We have a slate with 12 games and 1,050,000 plus totals. That if Higbee gets one of those touchdowns, your stack sucks, because you have to beat out like so many other games. That's why this is a very interesting week, that it's not just stacking the right game, but stacking the right pieces of the game. And then if we have multiple games that go 60 plus points, it's quite possible that there are 3 potential stacks we could look at the top of the millie in the top 10, and it won't be one of those weeks where, well, if you don't have Aaron Jones, you can't win. If you don't have this stack, you can't win. I think you could win with probably 3 different stacks. You just have to get the right pieces.
Yeah, and I think my thought on that game, they have a 30.5 point total. They are 13.5 point favorites. That said, we don't know how they're going to get those points. You assume based on the game script that it's going to be through the ground, but I do like how things set up for the passing game. But yeah, let's not get bogged down in the details yet. There are a few questions I wanted to hit here. Nick Bird asks, how does the strategy differ in a single entry versus 3 max entry versus a 150 max? I mean, I feel like the single entry versus 150 max one is fairly obvious, but maybe get more granular, Blender, on single entry versus 3 max if there is a difference for you.
Single entry tournaments have more condensed ownership. It's easier to find leverage. That's what I mean by being contrarian in single entry. Doesn't mean the whole lineup is contrarian, but someone that's going to be 25% owned in 150 max, maybe 38% owned. We saw Miles Sanders last week. Like, the ownership nearly doubles, which means that if you fade that guy and that guy busts, you bust more than half the lineups in the contest. So if you just fade that guy and then play the best plays, you're probably in good shape. Or if you eat that chalk, you're going to have to get much different in all the other spots. So the main difference between 3 max, you get a little bit more contrarian because people have 3 entries. You're exploiting the fact that people think in terms of, I only have 1 entry, I have to play safer. I think in terms of, I only have 1 entry, because they're playing safer, I'm going to play a little bit more riskier, because over the course of a 17-week season, I just have to bink once. If I come in last place 16 times, that's not what I'm playing for. And in a 150 max tournament, people tend to play more risky because they have more lineups or whatever. So the ownership isn't as condensed. So you have to basically take that into account more. I hate people that say, I got 1 lineup. I can't play Gabriel Davis because I only got 1 lineup. It's like, well, does he fit that lineup for that contest? Yeah, then play him. Oh, well, I have 20 lineups, which means I could take shots on guys that are going to see 3 snaps. I'm like, that's stupid also. So just because you have 20 lineups, just build a good lineup and then build another good lineup and then another good lineup. And then if you could build 100, great. If you can only build 20, great. If you can only build 5, great. It doesn't really matter. I'm putting in $15 worth of entries, Pete. If I don't get at least 12 back, I'm broke. Then you shouldn't be playing.
Yeah, and the other, I think, point on the 150 versus the single. So Jordan was talking about his team last year that whiffed on Golladay, but he got all the touchdowns through Marvin Jones. That's going to be fine in single entry. In the Millie Maker, you can't whiff on Golladay. You have to hit all of the one-off pieces. So that's why I think it even makes more sense to double stack, bring back, heavily correlate in the single entry. It eliminates the amount of things you have to get right. In the Millie Maker, Jordan, we have to get nearly everything right.
Pretty much. I mean, and you don't even have to get the 1% owned guys right because they're not owned enough. Justin Jefferson goes for 33 points. He's 0.15% owned. The likelihood of him being in the winning lineup is probably very low because so few lineups have him. So I think in the reverse, where people try to find these darts, it's like you don't have to find the darts. If the darts go along with your stack, if you were playing a Viking stack and you had him, okay. I had him in 4 lineups. Just I didn't. The rest of the lineup didn't work. But I'm not aiming for those plays. I'm not looking for them as the one-offs. I'm not Cedric Wilson week. Who the hell knows if it's Cedric Wilson week? He was literally unowned in the millie, and he had 2 touchdowns. T. Higgins was less than 0.5% owned. Those types of plays happen, but it could be 30 different players. So good luck if you want to, I'm going to sprinkle in a guy that has a 0 floor in all my lineups and let's see how well it works out for you.
Yeah. I mean, you look last week, you needed Rex Burkhead and Jeff Wilson Jr. in the winning Millie Maker lineup. Good luck, landing on that. In single entry, I won $10,000 eating Miles Sanders chalk,
Right. And you added it to your bankroll.
I did, except
not on the spreadsheet, but you did add it to your bankroll.
It is in the bankroll.
Harping on this.
It is not a part of the bankroll challenge.
I listened to the Swolcast, you guys, and the Guildcast now. It seems like everyone's winning now, and the shows are horrible, but you're playing DFS better. If you're going to have a bankroll, at least say that you have a bankroll. That's what a DFS player would have.
I'm telling you, no, see up here, Jamaria says the Blender, the bankroll challenge must maintain integrity.
No, but the word bankroll has a meaning. Then it's not the bankroll challenge. It's just the challenge.
I must remain relatable for everyone that watched me eat shit last year.
Then you got to withdraw that number that either. So you want to impress people by the 15,000 up there and be relatable? Most people don't have that in their account.
I want to vacillate perfectly from impressing people to being relatable. That's the needle I'm trying to thread here. Okay, we got a few more questions here. Curtis Thompson over in the RotoGrinders chat, I believe he's talking about a optimizer build here. If you find your build is shooting out a chalky quarterback only one time, do you just X him out as one isn't enough? I assume he means to gain leverage on the field.
Well, your exposures don't matter. Lineups matter. So if you have a good plus EV lineup that uses that quarterback once, you could play it. Because people think in terms of what's the point of playing if I'm playing 100 lineups. Like, for instance, this week I'm probably going to be way under on Seattle. I may have 0 Russell Wilson, but I may, when in the process of me building, because I'm building 100 lineups, but I'm not just building 100. I'm building like 500 and then whittling it down from there. If I find a Russell Wilson lineup that works out, maybe I have 1 or 2. My intention is to have as little as possible, but maybe I do. But that individual lineup, you have to take things into account. If it was possible to calculate the EV of a lineup, like it's impossible because there's so many variables and you're looking for positive expected value. If I just said that here's 10 lineups or here's 5 lineups, 1.37, 1.35 plus 1.33. Like if I just gave you those that have a positive expected value, you'd say, are those the best lineups that you have? Then play them. If all those 10 lineups have the same 4 players in them, over the long run, it doesn't matter. So each individual lineup. So don't think in terms of, well, I can't, if I'm not going to be overweight, I can't play them. Well, is the lineup plus EV? Then play it.
Yeah. All right. Travis asks, so if I'm only playing one $50 single entry a week, you would recommend playing risky plays, or would my odds be better playing 10 $5 lineups in larger GPPs? This ties into what we were just talking about with the contest size.
Right. The lineups that you would play in a larger $5 GPP would be different than a $50 single entry. So you either want to do one of 2 things. You either want to build lineups first and then figure out what contest you want to enter those lineups in, or the reverse of you enter contest and then you build lineups in mind of what contest you're in. Most people don't do either. They look and go, well, should I build a $50 single entry? Well, you're going to be building it in a certain way because it's a single entry contest with less people. But you could play the $3 play action, which essentially is the milli, but for $3, and the first prize is like 100,000, but it has 300,000 entries in it. Like those are the contests that if you're going to play 10 lineups into that, play 10 lineups that have a chance to win. And most likely, if you're playing 10 $3 lineups, your $30 is going to turn into like 0 or 6 or something. If you're min cashing in that, you're not playing the right lineup. You should be playing those types of lineups in the $50 single entry, but you should not be playing for a min cash. Like don't play for a 1.5x min cash. Play the type of lineup that works, has first place equity in the contest that it's in. And if you're good at building those single entry types of lineups, a little bit more chalky, right? Then play single entry 3-max. I focus primarily on large field. My fault sometimes is I might do contrarian lineups in single entry because my attitude is that I need to build lineups that could beat 700,000 people. So like there's many weeks that I'll play, $500, $600, $700 in volume in large field and get like $80 back. Like to get enough, like you take a look at my lineups and go, wow, you did horrible. I said, yeah, I'll do horrible until one of these weeks where I make a lot of money. That's what it is.
Yeah. And I did want to, Blender's talking about getting first place in these tournaments. Obviously, we want to get first place, but there's also a reason that you're thinking about that, in that the prize pool is heavily up top. Even in this contest, like the SPY here with the RotoGrinders extension, I don't know if it actually shows up on this pop-up window. I might need to go back to the lobby to see it. But I mean, these prizes in both the big and the little SPY, I think, Jordan, it's like 40 to 50% of the money is all to first place.
I don't think it's that high.
Maybe
I should withdraw. That's too much. Maybe I should get out of here. I got to withdraw now. It's not good enough. It's still flatter than most.
Here you go.
I know it sounds disgusting, but it's still flatter than
okay.
It's a 5,000 person contest.
Sorry, 20% to first. Top 10 is 41%. So still top heavy. But that's the kind of tournament if you want a chance to win $100 or $100,000 on a single bullet.
Or you could do the 444, right? Don't they have a big millie? Yeah. You got 15,000. You got your bankroll there. You could have 3 lineups into that.
Wait, could you imagine just 3 bullets just going all in, wiping out the bankroll? Man, I see.
No. What happens is I want to see the controversy. This is what I want to see, Pete. You enter one lineup. Screw it. But the lineup that we're going to do today is for the SPY.
Yeah.
But then you enter a 4-4-4-4 lineup, and then you win the millie, and then we have this conversation of why you're not putting the $1 million in your spreadsheet.
That I have $1 million balance, and I'm over here with only up $100 in the bank.
Right, you have red, and people are like, "Wow, you suck," but I guess you have $1 million in your account.
We have the chat is passing along breaking news. Fournette just got ruled out. I think that was likely. Everyone's saying Rojo chalk. People despise Rojo. I don't think he's going to end up being chalk.
No, I'll play him, but he's not going to be chalk.
Yeah, he won't be chalk. All right, here. Yeah, think of the content of LaVisca and the 4-4-4-4. I've been making lineups with Leone and Holka for our other show, and they're needling me for being a nit. I'm trying to practice good bankroll management, and they want me to go shot taking.
Last year, you were anything but a nit and lost all your money. So don't be a nit. I take pride in being a nit. I'm a nit.
This is an ambiguous question here, but what do you feel are the key mental factors when playing a 20 max tourney? I mean, I like to get out my stress ball. I like to do a little meditation. Are there any mental factors that you got here for 20 max, Jordan?
Well, I mean, we're hand builders. It's not about the mental game. It's about the hands.
That's right.
You got to exercise. You got to, practice your thumb rolls for the scrolling down. Right. Sometimes the two-handed, so you could hit the hamburger menu. Right. You gotta do a lot of stuff in the app. So really, it's not about intelligence when you're hand building. It's about dexterity.
So I've heard people talking about as far as, cumulative ownership. Some people are, setting kind of arbitrary thresholds like, I'd like it to be under 150 percentage points. To me, that's entirely slate specific. But when you're building your lineups, are you looking at specific thresholds, or is it just kind of by feel and looking at the ownership that it's not going to be too popular?
Well, you can't use an arbitrary number because it really depends on how spread out that ownership is. Because I mean, this week it's a little bit more spread out. So the examples is hard. But like last week when we had like 30% owned guys, it's like you could take all the chalk and just take 2 1% owned players. The cumulative ownership would be over 120%, but you'd have enough leverage if the 2 1% owned guys go off. So like the number in and of itself doesn't matter. It's the combination of everything. So like for showdown slates, I know, Pete, you're a showdown thought leader. I figure I could present to the Buddha of Showdown that I look at a lineup, and if you're leaving 4,000 in salary and you're playing one single-digit owned player, like you probably are fairly unique, even though your cumulative ownership is high. You're playing high owned players, but you're leaving so much salary that you're not playing the highest owned player. So think in terms of that for your GPP lineups on the main slate, that if you're going to jam in all the chalk, that you just need 1%, 2 1% on, and they have to put up 30. Good luck finding a 1% on player that puts up 30 out of the blue. There's, you could find the gem that no one could. Cedric Wilson, you can, but that can win. So the actual number, typically by rule for large field GPPs on DraftKings, it's between 80 and 120. I'm looking, typically if I'm building a ton of lineups in Lineup HQ, I'm building lineups and then I'm going by sorting by projected ownership and going, do I have lineups that are like way too low? Cumulative 40. And I'm like, do I need to be that? Like, can I? Do I need to have the? I can replace the 5% on running back with the 25% on running back. Okay, that lineup's good now. And then I'll go to the top ones and go, do I have ones that are over 120? Then I look at them individually and go, no, I think this has enough. This one's fine. But the next one may be, instead of playing DJ Moore in this lineup, let me switch over because now it's a little too chalky. So like the number doesn't, like, don't just, many people just go into lineup HQ and they just start, you know, that they're not used. They don't have the dexterity. They're so used to, you know, hand building that they go in and their mouse moves around. They're not used to there's no feel. They have no touch screen or anything. And then they spit out 20, 30, 100 lineups and then they submit it. And then they wonder why their lineups suck because they didn't look at, like, they like plugged in a bunch of settings and then just ran everything. It's like, I'm running stuff like 100 times. I'm like, run it. And I go, whoops, forgot a group. Run it. Oops, that correlation doesn't work. Let me make another. And I'm just doing it. You do it 100 times. And then even in the morning on Sundays, I'm going through Sunday morning one by one to each lineup going, oh, that maybe I shouldn't play that defense against that player. And like, okay, let me switch it around. Like, and then there you go. You're done. So I'm kind of in the middle. I'm opto broing out on Saturdays. And then I'm kind of like pseudo hand building on Sunday mornings.
There you go. We'll allow you into the hand build family if you're a pseudo hand builder. And I think that the distinction to make too about, I mean, Showdown and the main slate are just wildly different games where the goal of being unique in Showdown is to make sure your lineup isn't duplicated, say, more than 10 times, where the duplicates get out of control and you're extremely lowering your EV if your lineup's duped more than that. In the single entry tournament, there's so many different combinations on the main slate that you're unlikely to be duped, but we're just trying to make sure that we're on different constructions or a couple different plays so we can lap the field when a chalk construction flops. That's
exactly the point. One of the things that you look at is not necessarily the players, but the construction of, if I play this chalk stack, it leads you to certain plays, to certain players in certain salary ranges. And then if you're going to use a secondary correlation, that leads you to another, like, that combination. You may have a 6-person combination that the 6-person combination is duped enough times that, yes, you're unique 2v2. You'll be the unique lineup. It's just that now you have to beat out like 84 people that have the same 6 blocked because it's so obvious that if you were going to do that, that's how they would piece it together. That it may not be get off the construction. Go, I'll play the same games in the same secondary correlation, but instead of DJ Moore, I'm playing Robbie Anderson. And instead of playing, Joe Mixon, I'm playing David Johnson in that range. And then it's like, okay, I'm still rooting for the same things to happen as those lineups, but now I'm not as correlative to those lineups. So I don't have to rely on my 2v2 to beat 80 people to get first place.
Yeah. And this is, when Blender says, play whoever you want. If last week you're like, I want to play these 3 chalk running backs, like, go for it. But then you can't play the Russ double stack. That's also going to be really popular. Or if you want to play the Russ double stack like I did, I'm going to have to get a little off the board with Austin Eckler and Dalton Schultz and some guys that no one's going to have. You can play it, but you then have to think about it in the context of your full lineup.
Right. And you could have started with, I want to play Dalton Schultz just out of nowhere. Just like, I want to play Dalton Schultz this week. I was like, okay, what lineup makes sense to play Dalton Schultz? A Cowboys lineup or a Seahawks stack? Or as a one-off, just I don't know, you just like Dalton Schultz and he's your low-owned tight end one-off. Like, they all make sense. If you wanted to play Justin Jefferson for some reason, like, I played him in 4 lineups, but only because I was playing Viking stacks. I didn't want to play Justin Jefferson, but how did you land on 0.15 Justin Jefferson? It's like, well, I'm playing Kirk Cousins and Adam Thielen and Derrick Henry. And he, I also played Olabisi Johnson, and he did nothing because Justin Jefferson did everything. But once I decide on the stack, now I can include those types of players. But I didn't just come out. Some people may just go, they look down at the bottom and see some 5th wide receiver they want to play. It's like, okay, if you decide to want to play that 0.1% owned wide receiver, you could play whoever you want. But now, because you're playing that guy, you could play much more chalky guy. Now build your lineup a lot more chalky because of it. You could literally justify anything in a lineup. As long as they're going to see one snap on the field, I mean, it doesn't mean it's a good play. It doesn't mean it's a high probability play. But if you could say, hey, the sixth wide receiver, Pharaoh Cooper, goes return. He doesn't even see a snap, but he returns a punt or something. And I'm going to play him at 3K. It's it's not a 0% chance. So it's a very close to 0, but it's not 0.
We're gonna start building a lineup here in a second. I have another question for you. Where are you at on a double stack that includes the running back? Let's use, say, like Mike Davis as an example this week. Or are you strictly pass catchers in double stacks?
On the run back, I don't mind the running backs. It all depends on the prices. So it's you have to think in terms of how does this guy get to a ceiling as well as this other guy get to a ceiling. So in the case of higher price running backs and higher price wide receivers, it's hard to play them together on the same team because it's much harder for them to hit the ceilings for their prices. But the cheaper ones, if you want to play David Johnson and Brandon Cooks together, well, they're cheap enough. Cooks could have a 100-yard game. For a 4,500, 100-yard game and 1 touchdown is beautiful. For an 8K wide receiver, that says you're fine with that, but that's not a ceiling for those types of wide receivers. And the same thing for running backs. If you're playing Mike Davis could get 20 points with 7 receptions. I know you're probably talking about the Carolina guys, Mike Davis and DJ Moore. They're going to be chalky. They're probably going to also be chalky together because they both could get there. DJ Moore could have a 100-yard game with a touchdown. Mike Davis could have 20 PPR points. In a game where Carolina barely even does anything. Maybe he only scores 20 points, and that could happen. And if you want to use them as the 2 run backs in a 2-2, if you want to play Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, and then Davis and Moore, or Davis and Anderson, or Davis and Samuel even, they're cheap enough that you can do that as a block. That's what I was talking about before of looking at the blocks. Do I want to play blocks, or do I just want to play pure leverage points?
Gotcha. All right, let's start talking about the slate here as we start to build a lineup. As we mentioned, this is a great GPP week, a ton of viable games, big game totals. Is there anywhere you are finding yourself gravitating right away? You did pour a little cold water on my Rams play. Is a place you like to go to first here?
Okay, well, it depends on if we're playing blocks or we're just playing leverage, because the leverage points on this slate, DJ Moore and Mike Davis are going to be chalky. Kamara is going to be chalky. David Johnson may be. So, I'm taking a look at, are there any negative correlation plays that I could play? So, either if I'm going to play DJ Moore in a lineup, I'm much more likely to play him in a stack rather than as a one-off.
Okay.
If I'm not going to play Carolina as a stack or that game as a stack, I could play Robbie Anderson as a leverage. Instead of playing DJ Moore in a lineup spot in my lineup at 5,600, I'm playing someone that's negatively correlated to him, which is Robbie Anderson, because obviously they both can't catch a pass at the same time. Or I'm playing Mike Davis and no DJ Moore. I'm doing something if I'm not playing David Johnson, I'm playing Brandon Cooks. I'm playing Will Fuller. Those are the leverage type of plays. But I think there are 2 games that have blocks that if you wanted to play a block, meaning that you don't have to hit all the pieces. I think the 2 games with blocks are Houston, Minnesota, and Buffalo, Las Vegas.
Yeah. To me, Josh Allen continuing, I know his price has gone up, but he continues to be underowned and just has this ceiling that very few guys can access week in and week out. I love, let's build a Josh Allen team.
Okay.
Let's build a Josh Allen team. It does sound like John Brown is going to play this week. Gabriel Davis had a pretty interesting game last week. I still think Diggs is probably just the logical stack partner here.
Yeah, you can put in Diggs to start. Maybe we end up going down to Brown.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think you have to play both of them.
Yeah, that is the thing too with these guys that have the rushing upside, the Lamar, the Cam. Will you still double stack them, or how do you think about that for rushing quarterbacks?
It depends on the price of the receivers. If Brown was out, Davis is 3,200. How much do I need from him? I could double stack with Davis all day.
Yeah.
Right. Brown is 5,100. It's a little bit costly. But the rushing quarterbacks, may only support one receiving ceiling option because they've vultured 2 rushing touchdowns, which is being taken away by the wide receivers. So like if you're going to play Allen, you could play Allen Diggs or Allen Brown. And if Brown was out, like if Brown was 3,000, I have no problem with that because if I get 10 points out of him, that's fine. But I mean, this makes the most sense, Allen Diggs. And you could play this as a block and play Waller and Renfro as a run back. And you could legitimately, if you wanted to, play Jacobs as well.
That's what I was actually going to bring up, Jacobs, because when I'm just looking at the ceiling projections and his ownership, he's that running back that is jumping out to me as the guy that's flying under the radar, and he correlates nicely with this stack.
Right, but all of them correlate nicely with the stack. When Josh Allen gets involved in shootouts, it's just the plays. There's so many plays in the game. My only concern with Jacobs, obviously, is that if he doesn't get third down work or passing game type of work, it could be a game. If Jacobs has 30 touches in this game doesn't go over in that scenario. If he's going to get 6 or 7 targets out of the backfield, that's what I want to see. So that's why I think the natural run back in this stack is Waller. I mean, I think that's very clear from a target perspective. But you could play 2 of those guys. Like if Brown was out, you could legitimately play this as a 3-3 and play Allen, Diggs, Davis, Jacobs, Renfro, Waller. They're all cheap enough that you don't have to get them all right? You don't have to. One of them could have 4 points.
Yeah.
As long as this game goes 30, 37, 32 or something, like you pretty much got pretty much everyone in the game that matters.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that was my concern with Jacobs heading into the season, his pass catching stuff. He's not quite there to full blown bell cow back. He ran a route on 44% of cars drop back. So he is enough in the mix that he is relatively game script independent, but it's still a little dicey. So I feel you on that.
I see people in chat that is ceiling suicide. This is a single entry. You don't need milli ceilings. You just need You just need a ceiling. For instance, Pete, put in those guys in the lineup just to show.
Who, Renfro?
Yeah, put all of them. Put David. Pretend that Brown's out. Put them all. 3-3. I mean, just be nuts. Be absolutely nuts with this.
Let's go nuts.
Just to show what I'm talking about by a block, not a stack. Okay, so here we go. If Jacobs, Allen's ownership is what, 5%? Diggs is going to be 5%. I mean, Davis would probably end up being a little bit popular if Brown was out. So maybe he'd end up being 9%. Waller's chalky. He'll be 17%. Right? You have the ownership right there. Renfro is not going to be 0.1, but he'll be low. Like, take a look at that ownership in there. Do I have to, as long as 90% of the production goes through these players, all these players combined could score 160 points. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know if Davis catches the touchdown and Diggs doesn't. It doesn't matter to me. I have them both. If Waller catches a touchdown or Renfro catches a touchdown, I got them both. I don't need Waller to get 3 touchdowns. I just need Waller and Renfro to get 3 touchdowns. I need Jacobs to score 100 yards and a touchdown, and Diggs to have 100 yards and a touchdown. Like it doesn't matter which way it goes. If Allen rushes one in, well, I got that also. I mean, I got everything. So for single entry, for Millie, you're not going to hit 250 with this. Yes.
Right.
You're going to have a dud. One of these, Renfro is sitting there with a 6, but Waller has 28. So the combined of Waller and Renfro is 34. So that's like getting 17 each. For a 4,000 entry contest, you're good. You have everything correlating. Now, you don't have to do it. That's why I said, are you deciding to play a block, which is something like this? Not necessarily 3-3. It could end up being 2-2. It doesn't have to be this extreme. Or are you just playing like a 1-1, a simple skinny stack and then play the best plays type of lineup? So that's why, I mentioned the 2 blocks. I think the Texans game is a block, and I think this game is a block. I think most of the other games, the pieces are too expensive to kind of block together like this.
Yeah, no, I think your point's well taken. And, you were mentioning last week, a lot of people having that Seattle-Dallas block, and then all of a sudden you're competing with, 80 to 100 people who have that block. This block is going to be owned by what?
No.
Just us and maybe one other person?
No, not even. In single entry, 3-3 like this, we'll be the only one with this.
Yeah. So
I'm not saying to play this. I'm just saying that you could get this extreme, because if Brown's going to play, I don't think Davis. You don't put Davis.
No. All right. So let's for our purposes though. Yeah. Let's scale this back here a little bit. I'm just gonna remove these for now, and you tell me which how you would like to build on this stack.
I mean, you seem to like Jacobs. I don't mind Jacobs and Waller if you wanted to do that.
Let's do it. So we'll do a 2-2.
Right.
And if this game is the highest scoring game on the slate, we have the 4 players most likely to soak up those points.
Right.
Okay, cool. So now we are the Minnesota Houston game. Like you said, the Carolina one. If we do go from Carolina, we aren't going to be probably jamming the chalk. Although with this, now how are you thinking about this? Is there a play the best play, a guy, or are we still going to look for some contrarian spots here?
You could still look. I would with playing up for Jacobs at 6,800. We have 4,780 remaining. What I also like doing right now is put in the cheapest defense. Oops. We're not going to necessarily play the cheapest defense, but it gives us a little bit more accurate, because defense is so variant that you could play the Dolphins. But now we get an average remaining player salary of 5,475, which means that we will most likely in the running back spot. We're not playing Zeke in this lineup, right? We're not going to be able to, and we're not going to find 3K wide receivers. So now I'm looking for a running back wide receiver combination that fits within here. I think the other game that's good for blocking that is going to be leverage off of Kamara ownership is going to be Dalvin Cook and Brandon Cooks.
I was literally just going to say those 2 names. We are in mind melt.
Make sure you don't have too many cooks.
Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Too many cooks. Too many cooks. There are about 3 people in chat got that. So
I was going to say, are people even old enough to remember that
it's
video?
An Adult Swim show.
Yeah. That's that was probably like 2009?
Nah, maybe 8 years ago, maybe, or something.
All right. I like this. Brandon Cooks. It's unfortunate that Jared Cook is unlikely to play, because then we could have jammed 3 cooks in this lineup here.
Yeah, all the cooks.
This is an interesting question. Are we trying to find underrated shootouts or just ignoring chalk in New Orleans, Detroit? I don't think there's going to be much chalk outside of Kamara in that game.
Right. I don't. Galladay will be a little bit owned. I mean, it's going to Kamara and then no one else based on ownership.
Yep. Okay, so this leaves us with 4,900 plus whatever else we're wanting to get up. We have a 2-2 game stack. We have a running back wide receiver. Now, what are you thinking about in context of this lineup?
Okay, well, we paid up for 2 running backs. As I said before, I think there's more paths for cheap running backs to get ceilings than cheap wide receivers. I think with Fournette out and the Bucs as a favorite, and people that don't like playing Ronald Jones, because look at our running backs. If we play Ronald Jones, we're not playing Mike Davis, we're not playing Kamara, we're not playing Mixon. Like we're essentially completely off of that. So if we put in Ronald Jones at 4,700, or just withdraw from the contest, whatever you want to do on your screen.
No. I jumped over to the lineup HQ because I did want to just show for people. So the chalkier running backs that you were just running down, we're not playing Kamara, Mixon, Elliott, Davis, Johnson, Drake, Henderson, CEH. It's all the way down to here at Dalvin Cook as our first running back there. So I like that thought process. I mean, when you think about the knock on Rojo, well, there's been lots of knocks on Rojo, but the worry is he going to catch passes? They've been using LaShawn McCoy a little bit there. LaShawn McCoy will be involved on passing downs, but Rojo should have the goal line work, and God, we pray he still has the juice to break off a big run.
Right.
So we can play Rojo. That leaves us with 5,100 or potentially going lower than that and upgrading at defense.
I know exactly who should play right in that spot.
You gonna say Slayton?
No. Move the Dolphins defense up to a $2,300 defense.
Okay.
Let's see who that is. The Browns. Okay, beautiful, because we're not playing any Dallas, so that's great. You're gonna put Curtis Samuel there.
Ooh, okay. Sell me on Curtis Samuel.
All I have to do is sell you on the fact that DJ Moore is going to be owned.
How much is Robbie though?
50, 5,200.
Oh, okay. All right.
You can't fit it.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I was going to say, I was going to look at those two spots and go, can we fit in Mike Davis and then someone else? But I just don't think there are like this lineup. You could play Mike Davis in. It's just that we're not going to have enough salary for a wide receiver that we could play. The only way to do that is if we move Diggs down to Brown and then Ronald Jones up to Davis, and then we get a better wide receiver. But I think this is fine. I think, I mean, this may actually be a little too contrarian.
Yeah.
For a 4,000 entry contest. This is what I mean, Pete, by I'll build this type of lineup and I may win with it. I may come in third and then look and go, yeah, I think I got a little too much leverage there, but it worked out. But the thought process behind the lineup, it doesn't have to be these players. So like, I didn't think of Curtis Samuel because of Curtis Samuel. I just thought of DJ Moore is going to be high owned, who's negatively correlated with him that fits in that price range. That could have been like Jarvis Landry. If we wanted to play instead of the Browns defense and played the Dolphins and you played Jarvis Landry, I think that's perfectly fine. If you wanted to do that,
you could.
Play whoever you want. I mean, it gets to the point where you just play whoever you want, right? If you want, the defense doesn't matter that much.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing too, I mean, like we were saying, you could do Dolphins and play John Brown as the Josh Allen double stack too, if you want.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So this is goes to show you guys there's you can justify a lot of things. You want to just be context specific to what you have already done. And I do agree. I could see myself having a lineup very similar to this. I might still work in a little more chalk, actually. That, like you said, this might be even more contrarian than I would probably go in the SPY. But I think this is a nice looking lineup all around here with these last two pieces being fairly interchangeable.
Right, because I think you could take away Jacobs and have it be Allen Diggs and then put Renfro in there and have Renfro and Waller, and then you could go up and you could find a way to get the Kamara or something.
Right. Yeah, you could definitely eat that Kamara. Yeah, so we'd have to mess.
Or you play Mike Davis in that spot. I mean, like you'd figure out a way to get in so you're not, because you don't even need to, if you don't want the Dalvin Cook and the Cook, if you don't want too many Cooks. Like you just play Brandon Cook. He's 4,500. He doesn't need to be correlated with anyone. So you don't have to worry about that.
Yep.
So let's say you put Kamara and Jacobs instead of playing Cook, you play Kamara. Now you're moving up. Now you're getting into like normal leverage range.
Right. We got Travis back again. We were kind of touching at this at the top, but what makes you decide to go with a 2-2, 3-1, 3-3, etc. for those correlations?
Well, it's the pricing of the players and how much percentage of the production, fantasy production, that they relate to their team. So like it's hard for Dallas. Like it's hard to play any type of 3-3. They're too expensive and it's spread out enough that like I wouldn't want to do that. Like in the Raiders, like they have no one playing there. I mean, Jacobs is the highest priced guy and their receivers, 5,200, 4,600. Cooks is underpriced for the Texans. Like even you could do Carolina. Just the reason why I'm not doing Carolina is because it's going to be chalky. So like if you wanted to play Murray, Hopkins, Moore, Davis, like you're eating a little bit more chalk. You can do that. I may have a lineup like that, but just realize you're playing as part of your block. You're playing like one of the chalkier running backs and the chalkiest wide receiver. Yeah.
We have Iron Cardinal in the RotoGrinders chat. Play Mixon or lose money. That is all. You can play Mixon.
You can play Mixon.
You could play Mixon in this lineup if you wanted. You're allowed to play Mixon. This isn't the show where either Blenderhd and I are going to tell you have to play a player. That's just not what we're gonna say. There you go. That's the chef stack. Russ, Dalvin, and Brandon. Let Russ cook with Dalvin and Brandon. There we go. Blender, this has been great. Any final thoughts here for the people as we wrap up?
I'm gonna do the same thing with your spreadsheet with my wife.
Yeah.
I'm no matter if I make a ton of money in my bankroll, I'm just gonna show her a spreadsheet that I'm losing money because that means she's not gonna spend it. Because apparently that's what you do. It's the bankroll challenge, and you're not putting your bankroll on the spreadsheet.
People appreciate my transparency. I'm playing in the big
bankroll.
Here's the thing. This is the compromise. I'm going to play in both SPYs this weekend for this week. It is on record. instead of just playing one lineup for the spreadsheet challenge, Blender, both spies.
No. If you called it the spreadsheet challenge, I would not be worried. That would be accurate.
The spreadsheet challenge probably doesn't have as much SEO juice as the bankroll challenge. All right, guys, this was super fun. Like I said, if you guys haven't been listening to Blender, check him out on the Advanced Analytics Show. What other shows are you doing these days?
I'm doing the Showdown live show on Monday nights. Morning Grind. I do a review show, the Morning Grind podcast with Stevie every Monday morning. It's kind of like the pregame show. We go over ownership and results DB and stuff. It's kind of review the slate from where the leverage was, a little bit more game theory wise. So yeah, I'm on RotoGrinders all the time, and I'm in the RotoGrinders Discord, and I'm probably trolling Pete and trying to make as many hand building puns I can until you move on to the next joke.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you keeping it alive, though. I'll always give you that retweet with the hand building jokes. So yes, thank you for Blenderhd coming on. We must continue this heater, guys. If you guys haven't hit the subscribe button, the like, that would be awesome. Blenderhd and I will see you at the top of the SPY leaderboard this week. Peace.